We're going to talk about something today that feels super modern, but really it's as old as people themselves. And that's our relationship with money, with wealth, and that constant chase for more. It's something that weaves its way through everything, right? Our jobs, our dreams, even our stress. So let me just ask you something straight up. Just think about it for a second. If you had more money, like whatever number you're thinking of, would you finally be satisfied? Would that little voice in your head that wants more just go quiet? It seems like a simple question, but the answer is anything but. And to get a really different perspective on it, we're not going to turn to some modern financial guru. Nope. We're actually diving into a collection of ancient texts that have been wrestling with this exact problem for thousands of years. Okay, let's get into it. So, the first big idea these texts throw at us is what they see as the core problem with wanting wealth. They basically call it an unsatisfied hunger. The whole idea of wanting more is that by its very nature, it can never actually be filled. And this passage from Ecclesiastes just nails it. Think about what it's saying. The person who loves money will never feel like they have enough money. The person who loves abundance will never be satisfied with what they gain. The finish line just keeps moving further away. The text calls this whole chase vanity, which is just another way of saying it's empty, a pursuit that doesn't lead anywhere meaningful. Or, to put it in our terms, it's an endless cycle. It's a treadmill. You get the raise you wanted, and almost immediately you start thinking about the next one. You buy the dream house, and before you know it, you're looking at an even better one. The satisfaction is always temporary, but that desire, that seems to be permanent. And get this, it's not like this is just a one-off thought. It's a theme that pops up again and again. Here's another bit from the same book, talking about someone who works and works, piling up riches, but his eye is never satisfied. What a powerful way to put it. It's this deep internal hunger that, material stuff just can't seem to fill. Okay, so maybe it doesn't satisfy you, but at least it gives you security, right? I mean, that's the trade-off. Well, these texts argue, not so fast. They say it's not just unsatisfying, it's also an illusion of security. I mean, listen to the imagery here. It's incredible. Riches make themselves wings. They fly away as an eagle. This isn't talking about a bad day on the stock market. It's this profound idea that wealth is fundamentally unpredictable and fleeting. You can't ever really nail it down. It can vanish in a heartbeat, as powerfully and as quickly as an eagle just taking off. And that leads right into this next point, which is absolutely crucial. It's this direct statement that a person's life, their real value, their meaning, it's just not measured by the amount of stuff they own. I mean, that idea flies in the face of so much of our modern culture, where we're constantly told we are what we have. And there's this short, powerful story that just drives this point home. You've got this rich guy whose farm has an amazing year, a huge windfall. And what's his first thought? Awesome. I'll tear down my barns, build bigger ones, hoard everything, and then I can just kick back and relax for years. He puts all his faith, all his security into his stuff. But that very night, his life ends. And suddenly, all that planning, all that wealth, it's completely worthless. The lesson is pretty blunt. Just focusing on piling up wealth for yourself is, well, a fool's game. So this brings us to the heaviest argument in these texts, because now it gets really serious. It's not just that wealth is unsatisfying or unreliable. The texts go further and they warn that the pursuit of it can actually be spiritually dangerous. It can be a path to ruin. Okay, this is probably one of the most famous and most misquoted lines from these sources. Pay close attention to the wording. It's not the money that's the problem. It's the love of money. It's when that desire for wealth becomes the number one thing in your life, the thing that drives all your decisions. That's when it becomes a corrupting influence, the starting point for all kinds of other problems. And just like before, this isn't a one-time thing. It's a consistent warning you see across the board. Trusting in riches leads to a fall. The desire for it is called a temptation and a snare. Wealth can literally become a stumbling block that trips you up on your moral and spiritual path. And when real serious trouble hits your life, money can't save you. And then there's this image, right? Once you hear it, you never forget it. The idea of a huge camel trying to squeeze through the tiny eye of a sewing needle. It's impossible. And that's the picture used to show how incredibly difficult it is for a rich person to find a spiritual path. And you have to ask why, right? Maybe it's because when you have everything, when you feel totally self-sufficient, it's just that much harder to see that you might need something more, something beyond yourself. Okay, so we've heard all the problems. It's unsatisfying, it's unreliable, it can even be dangerous. So, what's the alternative? What's the solution? Well, this final part of our explainer pivots away from all the warnings and toward what these texts propose as a completely different way to think about what it even means to be rich. The big answer, the antidote to that endless hunger for more, it boils down to one simple idea: contentment. Now, this isn't about just giving up or having no ambition. It's about a radical shift in your mindset. It's about finding peace and having this feeling of enough in what you have right now, instead of constantly living in the future, chasing what you don't have. So really, what this all comes down to is a choice, a fundamental choice. The texts basically frame it as a decision you have to make between two very different types of treasure. So on one side, you've got your treasures on earth. We all know what that is, right? Money, possessions, assets, all that stuff. The text points out how vulnerable it all is. It can be destroyed by moth and rust, or, inflation and market crashes, or it can just be stolen. It's temporary. But on the other side, you have treasures in heaven. And this just means things with real, spiritual, eternal value. Things like your character, generosity, your faith. And these things, the text says, are permanent. They can't be corrupted and they can't be stolen. They're secure. And that right there, that is the absolute heart of this whole thing. The line that follows this comparison is, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." Think about that. Whatever you value most, whatever you consider to be your real treasure, that's what's going to get your focus, your energy, your passion. Your heart always follows your treasure. So, we're going to end right back where we started, with a question for you. But it's a little different this time. It's deeper. It's not just about whether more money would make you happy. It's about what you truly value in the first place. This ancient wisdom really challenges us to look at our modern lives and ask a very simple, very direct question. Where is my treasure?